Why Toronto isn't the capital of Canada. G'day guys, how's it going? My name is AussieTash. We are back with another Canadian video reaction. This one is really interesting. Straight off the bat, before I started this channel, if someone would have asked me what the capital of Canada was, mate, I would have said Vancouver for sure. It's just the city that Australians know when you talk about Canada, because all the movies are filmed there and, it's Vancouver. But obviously it's not. It's Ottawa. So in this video, we're going to find out why Toronto isn't the capital of Canada. I'm excited. But before we do, guys, please make sure to jump on, hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell for all future live streams and videos. Okay, let's get into it. Why Toronto isn't the capital of Canada. Let's roll.
If you were to ask a random person what the capital of Canada is, maybe perhaps in an Instagram story quiz, there's a non-zero chance they would probably answer Toronto. After all, it is the country's largest and arguably most influential city. And while people have likely also heard of cities by the likes of Montreal and Vancouver, the actual capital of Canada is the smaller but still sizable Ontarian city of Ottawa. So why is Ottawa the capital of Canada? For those of you who haven't seen a JJ McCullough video, there's one thing that's probably very important to know about Canada. At least for this video. Although it's kind of on the smaller end of things, it is, and for the longest time very much was, divided among two groups, East and West. That's largely in part because Canada was colonized by two different European powers. Around the turn of the 17th century, England and France started to set up colonies in North America, while England, and later Britain, mainly set up colonies along the mid-Atlantic coast, settling new cities such as Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. The French primarily explored down the St. Lawrence River and ventured much further inland, settling Montreal and Quebec City, and even down the plains, propped up by the ever-so-lucrative fur trade, to the new cities of Saint Louis and New Orleans. Over the following decades, while Britain gained control over the Hudson Bay, France also continued to expand its colonies even further. The colonies in the New World would also occasionally fight each other depending on whatever the hell was going on back in Europe.
Mate.
Thus, when the 7 Years' War broke out from 1756 to 1763, the French colony ended up being conquered and absorbed by British America. The French and Indian War, as it is also known, had a lot of effects on the two powers, notably in France, which pretty much just exploded, and the 13 colonies, who declared and fought for their independence to create the United States of America. The colonies to the north, however, stayed with the British, indeed becoming home to many a regular sympathizer in the 13 colonies.
Mate, there were plenty of wars. I have done Canadian videos and just looked into all the wars that were happening there. Mate, the Americans were fighting the Canadians, the French were fighting the British. Mate, it just went on for years, Absolutely crazy. I think it has something to do, I think Ottawa as the capital has something to do with its location. Like in Australia, everyone says that Sydney is the capital. Like if you were to ask somebody outside of Australia, what's the capital of Australia? They're going to say Sydney, of course. But our capital is Canberra and it's to do with location. They wanted it to be like in its own part away from everything else. So the capital of Canberra is its own territory. It's the only place there, like Canberra, ACT. There's nothing there except for the Parliament House and politicians. You don't live in Canberra unless you're a politician. That's it. It's about 2.5 hours drive from Sydney. I've been there a few times, but yeah, it's actually beautiful. Our new Parliament House building is beautiful. We have the old Parliament House. It's like a museum now. It's like 100 years old maybe, because we're quite young. But yeah. All right, let's get back into this and find out. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with location as to why they picked Ottawa. Not quite too sure. And that spider. Ottawa's got that scary spider too, I can't remember what that's about, but you guys talk about the spiders we have. Yet you guys have got one big black scary spider statue in Ottawa.
The revolutionaries also tried to invade Quebec in 1775, but that didn't exactly work out. Fast forward 3/4 of a century, and the Canadian colonies were having a bit of a tough time determining where they really wanted their capital to be.
Yeah.
Canada East and Canada West were united into the Province of Canada in 1841, but its capital bounced around Kingston, Montreal, Toronto, and Quebec City seemingly every time the Emperor died. During the 1850s, though, Canada was much more centered around these areas just above the U.S. Northeast and Midwest.
Well, that makes sense,
and so it wasn't really
doesn't it?
spread out over North America as it is today. Or, well, in practice, the U.S. border, but still. Thus, the rivalry between Upper and Lower Canada was arguably stronger than ever, both naturally competing for greater influence.
Yeah.
However, despite the modern politics of the area, this wasn't necessarily so much to do with French Catholic versus English Protestant politics, as French Quebecers at that time didn't exactly have all that much political sway in the region, but that's a whole other complicated history for a whole other time.
Yeah, we don't want to do videos like that.
This, however, didn't change the fact that there were two significant regions still fighting for greater influence. In 1856, the Legislative Council was brought forward to decide which of the 5 cities would become the permanent capital.
Okay.
And after 48 votes, no one could agree on a single city, since that got them literally no.
So you guys went for a vote and you still couldn't decide which one was going to be the city, the capital of Canada. Oh my gosh, man. It's absolutely crazy. So I'm guessing you just created Ottawa. You just built Ottawa from scratch. Guessing that's exactly what they did when they built Canberra in Australia.
Nowhere. It was decided in March 1857 that this would be a decision for Queen Victoria herself.
Well, there you go. Let
Ottawa
the Queen sort it
had been
out.
jockeying for the position of capital as well, and actually had a good deal of support in London, largely from Prince Albert and Governor-General Sir Edmund Head, who had traveled to all 5 potential cities and concluded that Ottawa was probably the best fit.
Well, there you go.
By the way, for those of you who live in republics, a governor-general is basically a colony or a country's local representative of the British monarch.
Yeah, we've got one.
It was thus decided that October that Ottawa would be the new and permanent capital of Canada.
There you go.
Ottawa, beforehand known as Bytown, was a somewhat smaller city, but had actually quite a lot going for it geographically.
Mm-hmm.
First, it's more or less equally distant from Canada's other major settlements of Kingston, Montreal, and Toronto.
Yeah, like
roughly
location.
160 kilometers from each of the first two, and 350 from Toronto.
Yeah.
Second, it sat on the Ottawa River,
Oh,
which
there
meant
you
that
go.
it was just on the Ontarian side of the Ontario-Quebec border. Kind of like how Washington, D.C. sits on the northern side of the Potomac River, just across from Virginia. Lastly, it was also said to be easily shielded enough from attack from the U.S., as it was deep into the country. By Canadian standards, I guess.
Yeah.
Ottawa was kind
Okay, that is so similar to Canberra, mate. Like I said, there is nothing around Canberra except for hills, mate. So yeah, it would make it really hard, you know, if someone wanted to invade Canberra. The Americans aren't coming to Canberra, but yeah, there is nothing but hills, mate, to get to Canberra. So yeah, location, it's about 2.5 hours drive from Sydney. Melbourne, I'm not quite too sure. I really don't know, but I'm pretty sure when they decided Canberra, it was because of the location. There was nothing around it. And, you know, like I said, they just built it from scratch. Like, yeah, they built it from scratch. There's no big rivers or anything around Canberra. Nothing like that at all. It's it's one place in Australia where it snows during winter. Mate, it really, really snows there. So, yep, I don't even think the Prime Minister of Australia lives in Canberra. He does have a residence there, an official residence there, but he also has an official residence in Sydney, right on the harbour, and I'm pretty sure he lives in his residence in Sydney, because why wouldn't you? It is right on Sydney Harbour. So, yeah, he's got 2 official residences in Australia.
kind of a second-choice compromise, though Toronto and Montreal each held parliamentary meetings for 4 years afterwards, while everything in Ottawa was being built up to capital standards.
Yeah, that's
with
cool.
Ottawa finally holding parliament by 1866,
1866.
when they got the fancy building to do so in.
Oh, look at that
The
fancy
following
building.
year, the new Dominion of Canada was proclaimed for Ottawa to be the capital of, and Canada continued to grow into the country it would eventually be today, now encompassing all 9 provinces and all 3 Arctic territories.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, hang on. All 10 provinces, I mean. That could really be an interesting video someday. Ottawa grew
I've done a video
alongside
on that.
Canada as well, as so did
There's the
basically every
library.
other city in the country. Most notably, of course, Toronto and Montreal. who each grew and competed for the spot of the biggest city in Canada.
Which one
as well as
is the
arguably
biggest?
being two of the most iconic and well-known.
Yeah.
With that in mind, seeing as to how the political, economic, and cultural centers of a country can shift so much over time, perhaps it was best that a neutral location between the two was chosen after all.
There you go. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the biggest city to be the capital, does it? And you see it not just in Canada, but in Australia as well. Population of Ottawa in comparison to Toronto and Vancouver. I know you guys have an estimated population of 40 million in Canada, but what's the difference in populations between Ottawa, Vancouver, and Toronto? Is Toronto the most populated city in Canada? Guys, in the comments, let me know. But it was a really cool video, and it come down to what I thought it would, location. But the British, they also had a really big influence. Some guy from London come around and he traveled to all 5 points and he said, this city looks pretty good. So they chose Ottawa. That's really, really cool. And then, they waited 5 years to have their first parliament meeting there, building that beautiful Parliament Hill and that old library and everything like that. It's currently under restoration now, isn't it? The Parliament building for, I'm not sure how many years, couple more years, who knows? In the comments, let me know. But yeah, that was a really, really cool video. I enjoyed it. If you guys like me to do more history videos like this, please, in the comments, let me know. Throw a suggestion on YouTube and we'll watch it together. That was the video for today, guys. If you liked it, please jump on, smash the like button, leave a comment, and of course, remember to subscribe. That really helps me out. Cheers to Man Under. Take care. Bye. Hi to everybody in Ottawa, Ontario. Hope you're doing well. Bye.